think we are ready to kick this off. Bonnie, do you want to make some intros?
Oh, sure. Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm Bonnie Hopper. I write the weekly, I am a Kettle Space member, an advisor, actually, and I write the weekly Startup One Stop newsletter with a very opinionated editorial. And then we post events, and every 2 weeks we hold events, usually our breakfast with an investor, which always gets posted in the Kettle Space newsletter, and it's free to Kettle Space members. And it's one investor and a small group of entrepreneurs, so it's a great way to get to know the investors, at least initially. And yes, some people have even gotten funded by attending the breakfast, not at the breakfast, but they followed up, and some people have gotten funded. So I want to thank Kettle Space for always hosting us. And Megan, who's an international beauty expert, award-winning international beauty expert, Megan Garmers, who's MG Hair and Makeup, is going to, that's Megan, and she's going to give us some tips. She'll tell us what she's going to talk about. And do we want to briefly go around the room so that we know who's here? Do we want to do that first, or do you want to talk first, just so that we know what everybody is hoping to get out of today?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, maybe for those who want to share, because we do have a fair amount of people here, for those who want to share maybe why they're here, so Megan knows what to focus on. I'll start. I'll just say, I already cut my hair, so a little late, but I've always been curious of how safe it is to cut your own hair. 'Cause people say,
I'm afraid.
Safe is the wrong word. If you cut it the wrong way, you can kind of screw up the lines or something on your head. So yeah, I'm just curious of how to cut my own hair. Yeah,
we will cover that.
Yeah, I'll go next because I think I have a good follow-up to that. So I'm Joseph. I work for Kettle Space. I want to avoid doing what Mac did to his hair.
Yeah. Yes, I'm a cautionary tale. Anybody else want to share? Otherwise, we can kick it off.
Okay.
And as I go, if you guys have questions, you can stop me or raise your hand or flag me down. Totally fine. This is really, it's meant to be, obviously informative for you and helpful. As I was saying, it's one of those things that a lot of questions are coming up. People don't even know the questions to ask. They just know what they're dealing with right now. So, even after this, if you guys have questions, I'm happy to help you guys. But yeah, otherwise, if no one else has anything to say, we can kind of get started. Thank you so much, Kettle Space, for having us be a part of this. Very exciting. So if you guys don't know, Kettle Space is a co-working space in New York, and they partner with different restaurants and other kind of hospitality groups, spaces, so that people can have a co-working space. And right now they have a new digital platform, so that way you can connect with people professionally, socially, and they also have a variety of different job board, member directory, marketplace, expertise, different things that you can kind of access, discounts, which I know everyone is always happy about, community Slack board, and it's free to use. So Mac will send an email afterwards following up, and definitely, encourage you guys to join. It's a great resource. So yeah, but thank you so much for joining both Helen and myself. I'm gonna kind of go over some fun DIY tips, because, when it really comes down to this period of, unprecedented times that we're living in, it really is. When you think about essentially the last kind of time that something like this happened, where there wasn't, you couldn't go to a salon or a barbershop to get your hair done, we're talking back hundreds of years.
1918.
So, you can think of the women who'd have a really long hair and they'd braid it and pull it up, because you didn't really cut it. You didn't go and get it cut or styled. Only in the last couple hundred years, were these types of personal services really something that people did, and we did on a regular basis. It was one of those things, if you had a unibrow, you just kind of had a unibrow. You didn't know it, there was no kind of thing that you did where you go get it waxed or eyebrows shaped. You certainly didn't color your hair or do any of those things. So, you know, those are definitely things that are newer, obviously, and problematic for us now since we're not able to do them. So I think the most important thing is really obviously being safe, as Mac had mentioned, but also recognizing that, and we can kind of see what's being foreshadowed from Atlanta, and Dallas is starting to open up as well. Not only will the opening of salons, it's not going to solve the problem, number one, because they're only going to operate with half of their capacity. So if they had 10 people, they can only have 5 now. And even then, in terms of the number of people they can have in the salon at one time, they're going to have to stagger their appointment times. The services that they're going to offer, they might only offer haircuts. They're not going to do blow dries. Most places are not doing blow dries just because it's circulating the air too much. So you would go in, get your hair cut. A lot of them are even saying like, just because like a shampoo bowl, like if Helen was in the shampoo bowl and I was shampooing her head, I'm like here, like ready to kiss her back. Like that's a little too close when it comes to spreading germs or viruses. So a lot of salons are actually having you come with your hair wet. You have to wait in your car or outside, make your payment in advance. There's no cash, there's no payment inside. They tell you when you can come in, you know, you come in, you get your hair cut and you leave, like it's done. Same thing for hair colors. So learning how to kind of manage your own beauty services during this time is important. I think I'll go first with Matt because I think that's the easiest in terms of like guys who have the shorter hair, you know, if they're going to be using a buzzer normally in the back. The great thing about buzzers, and I know that it's getting better, but for the last month or so, Amazon, lots of other barbershops, they were actually so delayed, like you weren't going to get them until like June. So I think now it's kind of catching up. So if you were to order a buzzer now with clips, you could probably get it by June. So that's definitely an option in terms of, you know, DIY. If you don't have anyone at home, you want to try it yourself, you can. They have clips that you can put on, just clip on the buzzer, which is great. You want to make sure that you oil the buzzer. It comes with a little oil thing. You just kind of oil it and turn it on. It's real easy. But you want to put the longest clip on first and then start, and you just, it's like a little comb, like kind of this shape, and you're going to just go right up the back of your head. So if Helen had that kind of hair, right, we would go right up the back of Helen's head with the clip. And we're not going to go all the way unless you want your hair to be like Max, where it's one length all the way around. You're going to come up, and usually the nape of your neck kind of comes in. So you're going to come up and just keep going straight up like that, right? So that way it's a little bit longer on the top. And you can just do that all the way around. And if it's still too long, go to the next clip down. Do the same thing, right? Easiest to kind of start in the back and go up, and then go to the sides and do the sides that way. Usually the reason for that, when you're doing it yourself, is because you don't see the back. And if you're on a Zoom call, no one's going to see the back. But the sides, it's really easy to go too short, too fast. So if you start with the longest, right, and you're kind of going this way, you're going to see if it's too short or too long as you kind of get closer to the ear, right, on both sides. So start in the back, go one way to the front, do the same thing on the other side. And that's going to kind of give you a nice shape up. Anything that's longer on the top that you want to shape up, there's 2 ways to do this, and this is kind of, it also goes for women who have bangs or shorter layers in the front. So if your hair is fine in texture, so that when I say fine in texture, it means that every little individual strand of hair is thin, right? So if it comes out of your head and you got poked by it, is it going to hurt? Because if it does, that means it's thick. If it doesn't, if it just kind of, it's really soft and it bends easy, or you can break it easy, means it's fine. Some people have fine hair and they have a lot of it. Some people have thick hair and they don't have as much. So know that there's two different things. One is the type of hair that you have, and then two is the amount. So if you have fine hair, right, when it's wet, it's going to be condensed even more. So if you have a haircut where you want to cut a lot of hair at one time, cutting it wet is great. It's going to save you time. If you don't, and you have a very specific cut, or you want to make sure that all the hairs are, you're not cutting too much off or too many layers, you want to do it when it's dry, right? And that's going to help so that you're not going to essentially, cut too much off or end up in a mullet, which, isn't really it's just not as cool as it used to be. And so really thinking about, number one, what type of hair do you have? Because that's going to make a big difference in how you're going to trim your hair. And then also how you're going to trim it if it's wet or dry, right? The easiest thing to do if you have, longer hair and it's in a style. So if you were to take, poor Helen here, if you're going to take Helen's hair, and she has kind of some layers, as you can see, it's longer in some areas, shorter kind of on the sides and in the front. And Helen has been, she's been dyeing her hair and probably pulling at it maybe. She's been frustrated in quarantine. Lots of products and blow drying over the years. So the ends are there's a lot of split ends, right? So she's like, it's time to go and get it cut. The easiest way to do that is to take a section of hair and to twist it. And you can see all the little hairs. I don't know if you guys can see all the little hairs that are sticking up, right? Those are going to be split ends. So if you take that and you take a scissor and you just trim all the split ends, you're just giving her a nice little shape up, nothing major. You're not going to look like, some child just attacked you with a razor or scissors. Very easy that way. The one thing you want to make sure that you're aware of is when you are doing that, I would section your hair. So from the center back, if you have a center part, or if you don't part your hair, so then you have two even sections. And then I would do the same thing from kind of the top, see if you can see it, the top of her head down to her ear. So she has a front section and a back section, right? Depending on how much hair you have, kind of the length of hair, you're going to take that, and then like I was saying, you would twist it, right? The best thing to do first, if you wear your hair down usually, is to twist it in a kind of down direction to get those little split ends. If you take it and you twist it out, straight out, it's going to be much shorter. So you're going to take more off, and it's going to be essentially a different type of trim. So it's generally best, if you're afraid you're going to take too much off, just to point it down and twist it, and then just kind of trim on each side. Now this little scissor is easy to get. You can get this at a CVS, Dwayne Reed. It's basically just like either a little, sometimes it comes in a manicure kit, sometimes you can get it and it's just like a beauty scissor, they call it. It's easy because it's small, right? And you can kind of get in and you don't have to worry about maybe taking a big chunk off. If you have short hair or bangs in the front, so for guys who have kind of a longer front section, it's easy because you can essentially kind of comb down that section and trim up to get a nice little trim in the front. If you are afraid of taking too much off, you have bangs or you have a front shorter section, the best thing to do is to first, again, if you're afraid you're going to take too much off, do it on dry hair. Style your hair, get it dry, and style it the way that you normally would, right? Because that's going to help you see how much you want to take off. So if you're going to be brushing it forward, right, or to the side, do it And then you're gonna kind of see how it's naturally falling. Take your scissor, right, and trim, but you're going to go up into the hair. You're not gonna go across. So you're not gonna cut this way. That's a no-no. You're gonna trim up. So you're gonna slightly angle to the left, little snips, slightly angle to the right, little snips. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna give a nice kind of graduated, shorter edge and to your bangs, to your front of your hair. And the reason that you would do that instead of just lopping it off is because when you do this, oftentimes it's not straight, and then you try to straighten it, and pretty soon you end up with like little short bangs, and you're like, what do I do now, right? So just kind of trimming it up is going to give you an easier time of actually shaping it a little bit more. Now, if you have kind of a layer in the front where it's graduated, some people, I caution doing this. Some people can do it and it's totally fine. Some people are not apt at it. And so if you are afraid, I would not do it. You can use a razor and razor your hair very slightly. And that's going to help shape the edges so that it's going to be a little bit more graduated. The problem ends up being that sometimes I've seen people press too hard and then they just lop off a huge section of their hair, which is not attractive. So you definitely want to be careful if you're going to use that technique. I would probably section out the hair piece that you're going to use the razor on and the ends themselves. And so just really lightly, very lightly touching it before you start to kind of go in there and go wild with the razor. I really do believe that if you're doing it yourself and you're just trimming up your hair, these little handy dandy scissors, they're like $5. They're going to be the best thing for you. You can get cheaper scissors, hair cutting scissors, again, like at a CVS. The problem ends up being that sometimes the blades are too thick and you're gonna have a really blunt edge, you know, and so you definitely don't want that unless that's the style that you have. But you can use the same technique if you're doing the ends. So if we were gonna do the ends of Helen's hair, right? We can take it and we can trim it the same way, not by, let's see if we can, there we go. Not by going across, but by going down, right? And if you use your finger as a guide, you're not gonna go too far down because you're not gonna cut your finger off, right? You have to be careful, obviously, not to stab yourself. So make sure that that's not a problem either. But you're able to do that. And then again, kind of going a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, and that's going to trim it up. For anyone who has longer hair and you want to trim, I mean, maybe it's not as big of a deal in terms of the style, you just don't want it as long. Again, if you have, you know, a right side part or a left side part your hair as you normally would. If you don't, then do it down the center. So you would section your hair, right? So you have the two sections in the back, and you would comb it forward and down. So down and forward so that it's all in front of you, right? So then you're gonna see the length of it. So I would trim it to the length that you want. Again, remember if it's wet, it's going to shrink after it's done and dries. So trim it to the length that you want on one side. Take the other side, do the same thing and trim it equally, right? And you know how usually like a beautician would take their hair and they take the two sides and then they come around and they do this a lot. And everyone's like, oh, that's cool. They use their fingers to determine the length. So if I'm going from left and right and I'm done with this side before this side, then that means that this side is shorter, which means that I'm gonna have to take a little bit more off of this side. So you can do that yourself on the ends to see if one side's longer than the other if you're not really sure if it is. If you get it pretty close, after you do that, take all your hair all on one side and then you're going to see one part is longer. You're just going to trim it the same way. Do it all the way on the other side. You're going to see one side's a little bit longer. Trim it the same way, and you're going to be good to go. So in terms of trimming your own hair, that's going to be the best way for you to be able to do that without ending up with a mullet or max haircut or shaving off your whole head. So those are going to be some easy things that you can do. And normally you kind of know your hair growth pattern, right? So normally you know if you need to go every month to the beauty salon or the barber, or if you have to go every 2 months, or you can like wait a little bit longer, right? Or maybe the length doesn't grow so much, but it seems like the top grows a lot. Whatever it is, you can kind of figure out your schedule, essentially what you're going to be doing and how often you're going to be trimming your hair. You might not have a lot of length. Maybe your length doesn't grow that much, but you get a lot of split ends. Then you're gonna do the twist technique and trim those up. So that way your hair, right, kind of shapes up and it doesn't look as ragged. Same thing, maybe it grows a lot and you don't get a lot of split ends, but you need to shape that up. For guys especially, you guys usually know if it's every week, every 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks if you're lucky, you know, and it's the same thing. You're gonna start and you're gonna go right up the back of your head. If you have a really specific haircut, so this is definitely for guys, where like it's long just on the top and it's shaved all the way around, that might be something you want to have a friend, partner, brother, sister, spouse do for you, simply because when it's all the way in the back of your head, if it's really close, if you're not going to be putting a comb on the buzzer, it is easy to nick yourself. It is easy to get too close on part of it and it's not going to be even. So those are things to kind of think about as well, obviously, as you're kind of doing it. The more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to be doing it. So you might be a little bit more adventurous to try something. My son, he's 17, he actually buzzes his own head for the most part. And he has his own little style that he does, and he does a pretty good job. I mean, sometimes I'll have to trim him up a little bit, but again, the more you do it, the easier it gets to be able to know what to do and how to do it, the shape, kind of the different dips in your head. Sometimes you have like a really big dip or kind of a big bump in the back. Those are going to be things that you need to be aware of. Cowlicks are another thing. Mac was talking about, kind of messing up the way that your hair is growing. Usually that doesn't make a difference unless you're really shaving it down, like bald shaving it down to the skin. It's usually not a big deal. If the hair is still off of the scalp and you're just trimming the end of it and the root is still intact there, you're fine. When you start to shave your head completely, that can change your hair pattern. It can change your hair growth. There's a lot of things that can be changed. When you think about it, like if you were to shave your arms, your legs, right? Sometimes what it does is it changes the hair growth pattern. It can change a lot of ways that the hair essentially is showing up. It's not so different for your hair and your head. Obviously some of it is, but for the most part, if you're going to shave your whole head, that's a totally different thing. Definitely want to make sure you have a partner helping you. If you're a guy and you shave your whole head, there are wonderful contraptions that you can get now. Like you can get a shaver that fits the palm of your hand, and so you can literally just shave your head just like you would like comb your hair basically, but it's a razor, and you just go the whole way up and down your head. That's if you want to go, totally bald. I would not suggest that for anyone else. But those are kind of the main hair cutting tips. If you're coloring your hair and you are experiencing some root color differences from the rest of your hair, the easiest thing to do is to get a root touch-up kit. You can either get a Madison Reed kit, you can get one like a CVS or Dwayne Reed. Clairol makes a root touch-up kit that's not bad. You want to make sure you're only touching up the roots. You're not bringing it all the way through your hair. And the reason is because the hair, right, at the root is a different color than the hair that's going to be essentially the rest of the length of that strand. So if you're dyeing the same thing for two different hair colors, you're going to get two different colors at the end. So the main difference is if you are dyeing dark, very, very dark, like almost black, and your hair is naturally not that color, you could do it because essentially you're just adding color to it. If you're bleaching your hair, going lighter at all, you definitely don't want to do that because you're going to get some really wonky zebra stripes essentially going down your hair. That's not going to really be attractive. And your hairdresser is not going to be happy with you. That's the other thing, is making sure there's only so many things that they can fix. So doing right by them is going to be helpful, because that's the other thing, is they might not actually have time to do that type of process once the salon's open. So once the salon opens, they might only be doing, root touch-ups. They might not be doing full highlights. They might not be doing color correction because that takes more time. And, maybe that's not something they're going to offer right away. So just make sure that you're easing into whatever you're doing so that you're not going to essentially damage your hair and then have to do a MAC haircut to make it all better. But those are kind of the main things. For highlights, I would say if you really want to do highlights, there are a few at-home kits that you can get. A lot of them have these kind of different types of brushes and applicators, or you could get one where it's like a plastic cap and you pull pieces through and you're only highlighting those pieces. I would actually suggest doing one of the highlight kits, but actually just sectioning your hair off. So this kind of front middle section as one. And if you don't have these kind of hair clips to clip your hair back, you can use bobby pins. You can use other hair clips. If you have a hair clip that you would otherwise kind of clip your hair back with, you could do that. But if you section off that section of hair, and then you kind of take the side section here and this side section here, I would just around the face do some of those highlights and then do some of the highlights up in here. And the reason that I say that is because, number one, you don't want to do something that you can't see in the back. That's probably not going to turn out right. And highlights are generally face framing highlights. Say that 5 times fast. Face framing highlights, and they're going to be right around the face. So if you take a section, right, and you're highlighting right around there, no one's going to see this under here unless you're like literally upside down or, doing yoga, but no one's going to be doing yoga with other people. So no one's going to see that. So if that way, if you do something that maybe your colorist is not going to be happy about, it's going to be something very minimal. It's going to be to a small section of your hair, and they can usually easily cover that up. So with the sections in the front, if you want to go advanced and do that, you want to take a thin section in the front. You do this all the way around the head. So you can kind of see where you can see through the hair. It's not a very thick section. And you're going to take the end of a rat tail comb. So it can look like this. Obviously, it can be a bigger one if you need to go a little bit deeper in the hair. And then there's ones that have a metal end, and you can get a little bit more precise. If you have finer hair, I would suggest that. But you would then kind of weave it back and forth. You see that, poor Helen, weave it back and forth. And so you're only going to be touching part of that. And then from there, I would even do that one more time, back and forth, so that you're only going to be doing that much hair, which is a very, very small amount. Then when you're actually doing it, I would, instead of using their applicator, you can get disposable mascara wands. And then you could dip that in the bleach, essentially the bleach mixture, and apply it with that. It's much easier to do it with that. The chances of you totally screwing up your hair is a lot less. And then when you are doing it, I would start from here and bring it down to the ends, and then very gently work it back up towards the roots. Don't start from here and pull it through, because you're going to get a lot of bleach right there and you could possibly burn your scalp. So I would start here, and it's going to be more of a balayage looking highlight then. So it's not going to be the 90s highlights of yesteryear. So it's going to look a little more natural. It's going to be something that's going to blend out some of maybe the ends to make it look a little bit easier. And normally if you have that done, you can tell where those pieces were. So you can even take the individual section and just apply the bleach to there, and then wait the allotted amount of time. You do want to make sure that you're not allergic to any of the products. So if you haven't been getting your hair done a lot, I would definitely suggest to do the skin patch test, make sure that you're not going to break out from it. Chances are you're not going outside anyway, so no one's going to see you if you are broken out, but you do want to be careful and safe doing that. Otherwise, if you know that you're okay to do that, make sure that you choose the right color. If you're unsure about the color to choose, I would always, if you're going lighter, so if Helen wanted to go more blonde, I would always go a little bit darker than what she thinks she wants, because if you leave it on a little bit longer, it's going to get lighter. If it's lighter, if it's too light in the box and she's putting it on, it's going to lift. It's going to get really blonde really fast. So it's a little bit more forgiving to not bleach your hair quite as much versus bleaching it a lot more and doing it faster. So those ones, so what brands do I recommend? For any hair color, if you're doing your whole head, like let's say that Helen had gray roots, right? And it's like all gray and she really needs to color her whole head the same color, I would do Madison Reed. Really easy, really good quality. It's a little bit more expensive than a box color at CVS, but it's a really good quality product, much more like a salon product. If you were gonna get something from CVS, I would probably say either doing Feria, which is a L'Oreal product, or Garnier Nutrice. Those ones, for the most part, are a little bit more foolproof. And if you are doing your whole head, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you've combed through, brushed through your hair. There's no tangles, right? This is one of my favorite brushes. I had to brush Helen's hair before we started because it was a mess. But it's a plastic brush and it has these little teeth. They're different, if you can see, they're different lengths. And you can really just go to town on your hair. For the most part, it doesn't damage your hair. It's very gentle, but you can actually comb through tangles much easier. So if you have a lot of hair, if it gets tangled a lot, this is a great little tool to use. You can get this online, Amazon. Happy to give a link to people afterwards as well. But I would do that first. And then if you're doing your whole head, take the bottle, right? And this is, you need to know the length of your hair. You might need 2 boxes because you might need to mix 2 sections because you got to cover your whole head. Start on one side. And I would start, like if we were going to do Helen's, right? We're going to start here and you're going to take the bottle and you're going to just pour a thin line here to the back of her head. And then you're going to do another, and you're going to take a small section, do it again right here, and again right here, all the way through, right? As you're going through, take have a plastic glove in your hands. You're not going to burn or discolor your hand. You're going to rub it in. You're not going to bring it all the way through the ends yet. You're just going to rub it in the scalp. You're going to go back, back, all the way through, and you're rubbing it in, right? All the way through until you get to the other side, right? And then you're going to take this section, and I would clip it up. So taking one of your clips, clip it up. And then from here, I would go back. So go back, down, and do that all the way on the other side, so that you're going from the ear to the middle of the head, and you're doing thin sections back, all the way back. Same thing, rubbing it in, making sure it's saturated. And then you're gonna take the ends, right? You're gonna unclip this. And you're going to, essentially, if you don't have anything left in your bottle, that means you should have gotten 2 boxes. Then you're gonna take the rest of it, and you're just gonna start to squirt it, pretty intensely, so that you have a lot to work with. And you're gonna take it, and you're just gonna pull it all the way through, massage it all the way through your hair. And again, through the hair, all the way up in the back, so that you can get it so it's all saturated, it's all wet, to be able to really put it on top of your head, right? So that way it's all wet. If it's completely covered with product, with the dye, then you're good to go. And then usually you can just kind of hold it there. If it's wet enough, it should stay on its own for the duration of time. If it's not able to stay on its own, I generally say, and I'm not endorsing plastic bags, but if you have a plastic bag laying around, if you put it in a plastic bag and tie it up, and then you can use one of these clips and clip it until the time is done. That way you're not going to drip dye all over the place, right? And then when it's done, you need to wash it out like normal. So you wash it out, and then you're good to go. I would always say with bleach, you want to check to make sure in terms of if it's lifting. I would always go lighter than darker. So if you're afraid of going too light, take it out earlier, because then you can always redo it later, and no harm done. If you wait too late and then it's too light, then you're going to have to find some other products to color correct on the other side. It's usually not as much fun. So I would suggest that. The other thing is you can do, they have root touch-up sprays, which is like a makeup for your roots that you can spray at the roots. It's like a dry shampoo that's colored, basically. So you can use that as well. That's a great way if you're doing a lot of Zoom calls and you just have this one section and you don't want to necessarily dye your own hair. You can get one of those sprays. You can spray it. It's a nice little dry shampoo on top of that. And you can style it like normal, and then you're good to go for the call. So that's for the most part, most of the techniques that we would either use on Helen or other beautiful people. But does anyone else have any other questions? Bonnie says that her husband has been shaving his head, but he won't let her shave her own head. But he might be right, she says.
Yeah, it would be a little bit too severe.
Well, the great thing, so if your hair is like Bonnie's, she can grow it out and it's not going to look bad. Bonnie has great hair. Like, I tell her that every time. Like, I've done Bonnie's hair before. We've curled it, we've straightened it, we've blow dried it. Her hair is great. She can do anything she wants with it.
I wish you were here now.
But those are things that, you can always, if you're too afraid to do anything, but you still have to look nice for a Zoom call, the easiest thing is, you can always throw on a hat. But you can also put your hair up in a ponytail, put it up in a bun. So it's like you can see some of the bun from the top. Headbands are really trendy right now, so you can do a headband. They have like the thick kind of puffy headbands that I wore in the 90s and refused to wear again because one and done. They have the cloth ones that have like a little knot at the top, super cute. you can do that, and then nobody sees the rest of your hair. They don't know that it's overgrown or needs to be trimmed or anything like that. The other thing is, if you are sitting in front of your camera, if you sit far enough away, I mean, I look a lot better sitting this far back. If I get closer, you're like, whoa, you know, like maybe I didn't do all my makeup correctly, or maybe I have a dry patch of skin because it's like, it's cold, but it's warm, but it's spring, but it's not. You know, your skin's going all crazy. You can very easily, you know, sit further away from your camera so people don't necessarily know. And the great thing is, as long as you're spot concealing, if you have things that you need to conceal, like if you have under eye bags or you want to add a little bit more color to your cheeks or your lips or something, very easy to do. You don't have to do a lot. And it comes across well. So I'd even suggest, if you're not sure kind of what to do, but you know that your normal makeup looks like a lot of makeup, which seems almost inappropriate when you're Zoom calling people and they're in their pajamas, you know, really kind of think through, okay, what are the things that are going to just add a little bit more polish to what I'm looking like. So maybe that's just a lip gloss. Maybe that's just some mascara. Maybe that's just changing the lighting. So that's a big thing. If you have a window, if you're able to sit facing the window, the lighting is actually going to be better for you instead of having it be behind you. People are going to be able to see your face a little bit better. So if Mac was turning her on. The other thing is, a lot of people really think that ring lights are the best. They're not bad, but they work best when they are in conjunction with natural light. So if you have a ring light, it's like a spotlight essentially. So sometimes that's not going to be the best lighting for you. You're going to need to have kind of lighting around you as well to kind of help that ambiance of you in a space. Obviously, if you're using a Zoom background or something else, you can do that as well. If you don't like the normal Zoom backgrounds, I know that West Elm has a bunch of backgrounds, so you can pretend that you live in this really fancy Californian bajillion-dollar house with West Elm furniture, and no one will know the difference, except if you all have the same background. But that's another great way that you could do that. Having the contrast between your face, your skin, and the background allows for sometimes the coloration to look a little bit better, so you look like you're more alive, or like you didn't just wake up or roll out of bed. So those are easy ways to kind of fix some of those things too. But
have you ever seen this haircut before? I'm really interested in getting this haircut. So it's like a guy, he's got like long sideburns and short bangs.
kind of like Tiger King, before? Like a Tiger King haircut?
A tiger? Maybe. I was thinking like British, like rocker, maybe from the 80s or something.
That would be, if that was what you were going for, you definitely want to, like, after you shave your head, just let it all kind of grow out. Because then it has that, like, weird, overgrown thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I would say.
And then just make sure to snip the bangs.
And I would snip the bangs. Just make sure you snip them. So you're going up into the bangs. Yep. And if you're afraid you're going to go too far up, which can happen, if you hold a comb, right?
Yeah.
So you're only snipping to the comb. You're not going to go like, whoa.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay.
And now we all know what Mac's going to look like out of quarantine.
Yeah.
Well, the buzz cut kind of threw me at first, but you know, got to do what you got to do, right?
I'll be like, "Where's Mac?" I'll be like, "You look like a British rocker," and he'll be like, "Nope."
Yeah. Just me. Just Tiger King.
And if you have that hair, to keep it, that's where you have the combs and the clipper. So you know what length it is. the combs and the clippers. So then you'd probably use like a 6 or something like really long, but that's what you would do, and it would just trim off those ends. The one thing with guys' hair especially, you have to be careful. If you have curly hair, make sure that you know where your curls and your cowlicks are, because you can essentially, if you're going up and the curl is going up, you're not trimming it. It's going to stay long. So that's where, you know, again, having someone else with you is going to be helpful. If you need to kind of hold your comb to kind of hold that curl there as you're going up, it starts to get more complicated, just because you need extra hands and extra mirrors. So it could be definitely look like a contraption in your bathroom with like mirrors and combs and hands, and it could get messy. But not impossible. Nothing's impossible. Yes, and so Bonnie's newsletter, which I love reading every week. So Bonnie's newsletter every week is always chock full of great insights, great humor, and if you know Bonnie, it's all Bonnie. It's like a love letter from Bonnie every week.
Oh, thank you, Megan.
Which I love. So sign up for that if you don't already have it for startuponestop.com. Yes.
Awesome.
I didn't know about all
If
that.
any-
Great,
Thank
that's
you for
good.
that tip,
Thank
too.
you.
I brought my big scissors here. I guess you wouldn't use something like that.
Especially for your hair. I would be afraid. Like, you know, if you want to get all fancy, you can, like, these are my fancy scissors, right? They're like these Japanese titanium, blah, 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 which are great. But they are definitely, they're bigger. One, they're heavier. Just remember that the longer the blades, the heavier it's going to get. So if you have to trim a lot of hair, that's why hairstylists get carpal tunnel and arthritis. So just make sure that, I would say, these little guys are going to be your best friend. They're so easy to use, like doesn't hurt. And that's the other thing, is if it's too heavy and your hand slips, whoa, whoops, and then you have this like weird looking mullet.
Excellent. Okay, I'm gonna get me a pair of those right away.
When I'm getting my hair cut, and if I'm not
Yeah,
going
you have a little time to worry about that still.
Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
Shouldn't have done it.
absolutely. Well, I'll definitely I'll do like a link for scissors that are like these, and you know, brush, whatever, and I'll make sure that Mac has that, so when he sends out the follow-up email, if you guys want any of those, you know what I'm talking about, in case it's
that hair
hard
color
to
that you
see.
mentioned. What was the brand that you mentioned?
Yeah, but I mean, they're easy things. They're not. It's not like you don't have to go to like a beauty supply store to get them, and they work. Don't worry about having to do all that. The only thing that I would say is, like, in terms of the clippers, making sure that you have them with combs. But other than that, you should be good to go. You're going to be the envy.
Awesome.
All of you will be the envy of everyone else. You're going to emerge from quarantine, and they'll be like, "What? Where did you go?" And you'll be like, "I just look like this all the time."
I attended a great event. A great Zoom.
At Kettle Space, exactly, and then they'll plug Kettle Space for sure.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Megan. Yeah, I feel a lot more confident. More back to cut it. Yeah, like I said, I'll be following up with everybody. I think a couple people dropped off, but yeah, we'll be following up. And thanks for your time, Megan.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure.
And one thing
Okay,
I
well,
wanted to mention was maybe now we won't be afraid to actually turn on the videos, and it won't be black screen with our name. Thank you, Megan. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Kelly.
Stay safe.
You too.
okay, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Everyone.